Hey, now that the cameras are on, let me tell you why I'm mad at you. I'm Nate, and today we're breaking down the top 10 celebrities who've confronted other stars live on TV. Number 10. Will Smith vs. Chris Rock. Let's get this one out of the way, shall we? In 2022, Chris Rock was hosting the 94th annual Oscar ceremony when he decided to make a little joke about Jada Pinkett Smith and her hair loss. Rock expressed his excitement to see Jada in a fictional G.I. Jane movie, which immediately following the joke, which landed for everybody else in the audience by the way, Rock stood in confusion as Will made his way towards the stage. Will adjusted his jacket, he took a firm, strong stance, and then he just clocked Chris in the face. He winded up his hand first to conjure up ultimate force, initially being seen as a planned joke between the two. Will then began shouting several times at Rock from his chair to keep his wife's name out of his flippin' mouth. Chris handled the situation well, he kept his cool, laughed it off for the cameras, and brought out the next award presenters. He was professional and quick to get the night back on track, but unfortunately an hour later, Will Smith won the Oscar for Best Actor in a Leading Role. He played Richard Williams, the father of tennis superstars Venus and Serena Williams. During his speech, he gave a half-hearted apology for his actions before claiming that the situation was due to his months of portraying the father figure on set, leaving him with an extreme paternal sense to protect his family. Unfortunately for Will, the slap was enough to get him banned from the Oscars indefinitely. Number 9. Chanel West Coast vs. Charlemagne the God. Welcome to Ridiculousness with your host Rob Deerdeck and his couch companions Chanel West Coast and Stilo Brim. Ridiculousness is a clip show. If you have MTV, there is a very good chance, like 99% chance, that it is on right now. One of its giggly hosts is Chanel West Coast, a prominent figure in Deerdeck's life since appearing in his very first MTV show, Fantasy Factory. But Chanel broke into the performing world as a rapper in 2014. Following Fantasy Factory, she became a regular host on Ridiculousness, and on one episode of the show, fellow rapper Charlemagne the God was brought on as the celebrity guest commentator. During a conversation with Deerdeck, the God said, "My only strategy is to just tell the truth. Just like whatever I said about you, I'm gonna say about you." To which Chanel replied, "Just because you say something doesn't make it truth." The God continued, saying that it's just his opinion, and he then called out West for being upset simply because the rapper once called her whack. Well, Chanel went off, dropping names like they were bird seeds at a park. She reminded Charlemagne that she was co-signed to a label by rap legend Lil Wayne, who also co-signed Drake and Nicki Minaj. She's got songs with Snoop Dogg, French Montana, YG, so T.Y., Dollar Sign, so don't you dare call this woman whack. Ty the God was left speechless by the outburst. I guess his mouth was just full from all that name-drop smoothie Chanel served him. Number 8. Jerry Lawler and Andy Kaufman. Jerry the King Lawler was a professional wrestler between the 1970s and the late 80s. Andy Kaufman was a comedian and regular star of the legendary sitcom Taxi. Yet somehow their paths seemed destined to cross. On one episode of The Late Show with David Letterman in 1982, Jerry and Andy were brought on to share the stage after a feud between the two had become public. Kaufman wanted to make his name more popular, and he did so by attempting to join the World Wrestling Entertainment industry. He eventually wiggled his way into the ring, and producers felt that Lawler, who was a wrestler for quite some time, and Kaufman would make nice on-screen enemies. Lawler was old school, and Kaufman was a wacky comedian who didn't belong between the ropes. A few months before the interview took place, the two fought in a one-on-one match where Lawler pile-drived Kaufman into the mat twice, and the second of which left Kaufman limp and in need of hospital. On Letterman, Kaufman was sporting a neck brace and appearing to be in enormous amounts of pain. The interview was meant to act as a reconciler for the pair, but instead devolved into shouting, slapping, and the threatening of a lawsuit. Number 7. Taylor Swift vs. Kanye West. That's right, these two are in a feud, and apparently it lasted for quite some time. In 2009, Kanye interrupted Swift during MTV's Music Video Awards as she was in the middle of an acceptance speech for Best Female Music Video. While the altercation didn't take place on camera, over the next few months the feud had become public, with Swift bashing Kanye's rude behavior during the time that the ceremony had set aside specifically for her. Kanye later apologized, and things seemed seemed to be fine for a while, until 2015, when the rapper then released a song called Famous, in which he said the line, I'm paraphrasing of course, "I feel like me and Taylor may still make love. Why? I made that be famous." Swift was very vocal about her dislike for the song and claimed that it was written just to undermine her success. And a few months later, Swift also put Kanye's then wife Kim Kardashian on blast after the influencer had publicly approved the song's lyrics. Well, joke's on them though, as they have just made enemies with a woman who fuels her soul with haters. I wonder what she's got cooking up right now. Number 6. Jerry Seinfeld versus Larry King. The comedian Jerry Seinfeld appeared on Larry King's talk show following the announcement of his show sharing his last name being cancelled. It was clear that Jerry wasn't doing his research before the show, however, as midway through the interview he asked Seinfeld how did his show end. He asked if it was cancelled or if Seinfeld had just simply decided to end it himself. Seinfeld paused for a moment before asking King if he was joking. Was he not aware of what had happened? When Larry said no, Jerry went off, asking how he could be so silly, unprofessional. How could his show be cancelled? It was the best show on TV for 9 years. He then asked King if he was a professional and if this was still CNN, if this was still an interview. Where was he? Before giggling and saying, "Do you know who I am?" The two laughed it off and King expressed that he was just wanting to clarify because he had heard it was cancelled, to which Seinfeld reminded him that his show was #1 every season. There was a big difference between being cancelled and deciding to cancel yourself, Larry. Number 5. Cardi B versus Aja Davies. In 2017, rapper Cardi B and model Aja Davies appeared on an episode of VH1's Love and Hip Hop talk show. Things became heated very quickly when the topic of Aja's ex-boyfriend Swift came up. According to Davies, she was convinced that Cardi and Swift were intimate together while she was still dating Swift. Cardi responded to the accusations by throwing her stiletto at Aja's face. She then jumped up and began making her way towards the model, but was stopped by 2 large security guards. Good thing too, considering on the other side of the room, Aja had done the same thing and was also being held back. An all-out brawl almost took place, but the altercation resorted to the pair just yelling at each other from across the room, with Cardi's main grievance being the judgment being placed upon her by Davies for being an exotic dancer before her time as a musical artist. While Davies claimed that wasn't the case, it was very clear from both their verbal and physical language that there was certainly some shade looming overhead. Number 4. Sharon Osbourne versus Cheryl Underwood. 2 years ago on the popular talk show The Talk, host Cheryl Underwood and Sharon Osbourne began to discuss the topic of racism amongst the recent firing of Sharon's personal friend Piers Morgan from Good Morning Britain over a series of comments he had made towards the former Duchess of Sussex. Sharon went off and began aggressively defending her friend, asking Cheryl what Piers had said specifically that was racist. She then went on to say that she was being put in an electric chair, and due to her connection to Piers, that she herself was also going to be blasted as a racist. She went on to clarify that she did not support his comments per se, but she did support his right to free speech. But he used free speech to say messed up things, so maybe don't support him publicly. She then asked Cheryl over and over again how she herself could be racist. What has she done or said? And then Cheryl signed off for a commercial break, before Sharon let out some choice expletives. When they returned, the tension almost seemed worse and the conversation continued to escalate. Eventually, Underwood was able to get her point across and calm down Sharon. The talk crew chalked the argument up to being a learning experience and a conversation that needed to be had. Number 3. Nicki Minaj versus Miley Cyrus. The MTV, the channel that just continues to deliver us such juicy reality moments. MTV was, however, responsible for the inception of one of the greatest award shows of all time, previously mentioned on this list. That's right, the Music Video Awards. This ceremony celebrates the best and brightest of the music industry, but in 2015 things got extra juicy. Miley Cyrus, remembered fondly as Hannah Montana, and remembered for riding a wrecking ball, was hosting the event that year, when rapper Nicki Minaj had just taken the stage. After winning the Best Hip Hop Video Award, she quickly shifted the audience's attention though from herself to the host. Minaj was calling Miley out for supposedly talking trash about her in a recent interview. She asked Miley, "What's good?" and Miley responded. She kept her cool and explained that everyone in the industry knows how news outlets and interviewers can manipulate footage to make comments sound worse than they actually are. She then reminded the audience about her difficult-to-watch performance at the ceremony in 2008 and threw an 80-foot picture up on the wall behind her just to emphasize the point. Minaj's mic was cut off and Miley introduced the list of artists being nominated nominated for Best Future Artists before leaving the stage. But this wouldn't be the first time Nicki got into it with another celebrity. Number 2, Dakota Johnson versus Ellen DeGeneres. When Dakota Johnson was a guest on the Ellen DeGeneres Show in 2019, she took a more subtle and pulled back approach to addressing an issue with the host. Ellen asked Johnson when her birthday was, and then claimed that she had actually never received an invitation for the party. The 50 Shades star quickly smiled and revealed that she actually had in fact extended the invitation, but Ellen never replied. Ellen was baffled, asking Dakota, "Oh, are you sure? There's no possible way that that could happen." To which Dakota replied, "Ask literally anyone here, specifically your producer Jonathan." Following the comment, Ellen is seen searching the room for Jonathan, or maybe just anyone that she can yell at, because she has a very angry expression on her face, which is understandable. She just got outed as a liar on her own TV show. Unfortunately for Ellen, that wouldn't be the last time, as only a few months later a series of news stories and rumors began to circulate about Ellen's mistreating of studio staff, eventually leading to the show's cancellation last year. Looks like Dakota delivered her 50 Shades of, "Oops, sorry, you're cancelled." Number 1, Cardi B versus Nicki Minaj. It's all led to this, a matchup for the ages. A few years ago at a Fashion Week event in New York City, Cardi B and Nicki Minaj appeared at separate times being photographed in stunning gowns on the streets of NYC. However, when the two crossed paths inside the buildings, things escalated quickly. According to witnesses, Nicki purposely stepped on Cardi's dress before spouting some nasty words about Cardi's daughter. First rule of trashing someone who is a parent? Leave the kids out of it. Cardi blew up. She stumbled as she tried to run across the room, once again being held back by bodyguards, but this time she got through. After a moment of calm, Cardi lunges at Nicki but is quickly blocked by her own security team, who must have made contact with Cardi because photos taken of her leaving the event show a nasty bump forming on her forehead. That wasn't the end though, as Cardi then began to remove her shoe and flung it at Nicki from across the room. I swear, she's like a Hawkeye with a shoe or something. Nicki and her team kept the shoe as Exhibit A should they ever need to open a lawsuit for the incident. No charges were ever brought to light, but the two have been in a public feud ever since. What other celebrities were confronted live for our viewing pleasures? Comment in them below, and please subscribe and come back to the channel. We'll see you next time.